Cool. All right. Welcome everyone to yet another Tunga Dev Hour. I would like to thank all the participants who have been able to join us today. I hope everyone is safe, whatever country they are, Uganda, Nigeria, etc. For now, let's go. Let's dive into our Dev Hour. This time around, we're bringing you some of this. We're giving you something we have been doing at Tunga to show you how serious we are about developing software. And we are going to be talking about how we code, how we do software at Tunga. Why did we choose this topic? Because we saw that we needed to share with our developer community on how things are done in Tunga to encourage those who are actually working with Tunga on a project with Tunga, with a Tunga client, see how we do our we code. So in this webinar, expect to learn several things. And before further ado, I'd like to introduce my teammates who are with me here. We have Renier, who is our Director of Operations. Renier, say hi to everyone, please.
Hi, guys.
Cool.
Yeah, and I see that, which is kind of embarrassing, I have the same shirt on as I have in my picture. That was not intentional. It's not like I have one shirt, but yeah.
Make it a point to watch all the previous webinars and not repeat your shots.
You bought quality.
I wouldn't be surprised now.
And also our guest, Ronald. Ronald is the architect of all this. And the first time I saw this, I was really, really impressed. And I was like, Ronald, this is something good. Now, Ronald is our head of product, and he'll be our guest. He'll be the guy running the show. And without further ado, Ronald, introduce yourself, and you can kick it off thereafter.
Hey, hi guys. Very nice to be here finally.
Before you kick it off, let's first have some ground rules for the attendees. First of all our attendees, please, in case you have any question, feel free to hit that button that has Q&A. We shall be able to answer your questions. And we are recording this for a live session later on for YouTube. In case you want to watch it again, please feel free to do so. We shall share the link in our Slack workshop channel. Speaking of that Slack, we have a general Slack channel in Slack. Please, you can send us any follow-up question you have. So Ronnie, you can take it off from here, sorry.
Thank you so much, Roger. I have attended a couple of dev hours. Today I'm now heading the discussion, which is very amazing, considering how
it's the first time you're actually in the dev hour, right, Ronnie?
Yeah. No. I've been there previously, but it's my first time actually to be a guest, to actually lead the discussion.
To be a guest, okay.
Yes, and it's a very interesting topic today. I'm very happy about this. All right, so probably I'll just start with an overview of an agenda of today, what we're going to look at. We shall look at who is this webinar for, so that we can be clear about that. And then a little bit about the software guidelines, and then why do we need software guidelines in software development, first of all. And then we shall go to software guidelines at Tunga, so you'll have a case study on how we did it and how it all came up together at Tunga. And then we shall give you some tips how you can create your own so that you can go and apply it in your project where you're working. And then, some tips how you can apply it, when to apply it. And then eventually we shall have a Q&A. Yeah, so maybe start with the poll, Roger.
Before you start with the poll, Ronnie, I have a question for you before we do any poll. At what point did you realize that Tunga actually needs to have these dev guidelines?
Yeah, that's a very good one. So we realized that, first of all, we are so many at Tunga, we are growing. We are building a lot of software at the same time, and the team was growing every day. So we wanted to have a harmonized way, to have a high quality of the product. And also we wanted to discover, we need to know the same approach. This came out as a PM that there are very many multiple way approach of things, how we commit, how we build Git, how we communicate, how we do code review. It was all scattered all the way, even how we code, like the coding style. Are we going to have our own custom coding style, or we're going to use industrial recommended coding style? So we realized there was a lot of chaos, and then a lot because of that, there were many multiple problems that come together out of that. So that's when I think the best way to do this is to have a harmonized approach, and so that we can have the same project. Yeah.
Because I think we had these software development guidelines way in the beginning, but they were just too loose. So we could interpret them in many ways, and that's, I think, when you came to the idea of, hey, guys, we should make it a bit more straight and a bit more focused. So that's what you did, right?
Absolutely. Thanks for asking, Roger.
Cool. All right. Let me launch our poll, our first poll. I don't know. I assume everyone is able to see it. We are basically asking, have you ever worked on a project without software guidelines? The first option is yes. They were there and they were lacking completely. Second one, no. I've always had clear software development guidelines. Third option is maybe. We agreed to some guidelines, but didn't put them on paper. And finally, software development guidelines. You're wondering what this is. First, explain the topic, please. So kindly feel free to vote as we go.
I cannot vote, right? Can I vote?
No, you cannot vote, unfortunately.
Okay.
To be skewed.
Yeah. All right.
Right. Let's give them a few seconds to complete the voting. Let me
So what are you expecting, Ronnie? What are you expecting that they'll say?
I'm really expecting a discussion of people really asking a lot of questions to see how, first of all, how it came about at Tunga and how we're using it right now to succeed. And also curious to hear what the audience will say about the experience when they're working on a project and they don't have these guidelines, what happened to them. I'm really looking forward to hear from them.
Okay. Yeah. All right, cool. I think we have at least some people who have voted. Let me end the poll now. And as you can see, there we are.
I didn't expect this.
Me too. It's a bit shocking. But it's not a yes, not a no. So we are somewhere in the middle there.
Okay.
Yeah, well, we do see a couple of people that say that they were lacking completely. Yeah, so that's also, I think, an interesting situation. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Cool. Yes.
Nice.
You can continue.
Thank you very much. Okay. Let me mute this. Right. Okay, yeah, so we are starting with this webinar form. We're looking at, of course, if you're a software developer, you want to work at Tunga on any assignment at Tunga, you definitely need to know these guidelines because it's our source of truth. It's what we use to guide us when building software. And of course, the individual contributor to a software project, not necessarily Tunga, this one is also good for you. And if you're a project lead, for example, you have a open source project that many contributors are working on it. So you need to put this, you should be knowing how to do it. Yeah, so those are the three categories of people that I'm looking for that this webinar will be helpful for. That's good.
And why would it be different for a software project leader than just for a developer working on a Tunga assignment?
Yeah, because a leader needs to understand when do you need to apply them. So you need to be knowing what are these guidelines, how do they help me, how do I lead this, how do I bring it up. So you must be aware of that. Yes.
Yeah, that's true. All right, cool.
Right, cool. So let's look at why do we need these guidelines in the first place? Do we need them? Yes, I'll say yes, we need them. Because we need to create an excellent environment where all of us can work together. For example, earlier today when we were starting, Roger asked me about this. We said, hey, the environment, collaborative environment where we need to work together must be conducive, must be agreeable to all of us so that we can produce high quality product. So in order for us not to have a chaotic environment, then we need the guidelines. And everybody would like to work in a very good environment as a software developer. Then of course, to produce high quality products, so we need to have a harmonized way. Imagine whereby we have 6, 7, 8, 10 developers collaborating, and we need to have a very good product that is not buggy and and you can know when to release and all those things. So all these process, a harmonized process that gives us a high quality product, guidelines really help that. And of course, if you want to scale the team, first of all, like you've been working, two of you, one backend engineer, one front engineer, and now you want to have 6 backend engineers to build your APIs, then you need guidelines that will help you. And then when you want to scale the product, it has been having a single tech stack, for example. Now, for example, backend, you have to implement very many tech stacks, maybe even Django, you bring in something else, you bring something else. So scaling both of those things, you need guidelines so that they can harmonize such a kind of growth that you need. And then lastly is remote collaboration. At this time, as you know, software development is hugely remote now. We're working remote. So each one, when you don't have physical presence with someone, therefore it creates problems. So you need to document. One of the reasons why remote is successful is you have to document the processes. You have to know what to do at any given time since you don't have your colleague next to you. So it's highly recommended if you are collaborating remotely to have guidelines, right?
Because take it back, Ronnie, one slide. I can remember from a couple of projects that we did that we needed to switch someone on the team, for example, or we needed to expand the team. And that's when we sometimes ran into problems here. Can you explain on that a little bit?
Yes, exactly, I can. So we are building an agriculture value chain management, and we started with just 2 developers. And along the way, we realized that we need more people to join the team. So we had to scale it, back end people to be 3, then front end, then we have to bring DevOps engineer. And then the way how each of these 2 people are working were totally not harmonized. So first of all, onboarding them was pretty difficult. Knowing Git branching, how we do our Git structure, how we commit our code, even code reviewing that, okay, now we're going to begin code reviewing each other code, even giving feedback was very hard. And even scaling the product itself was very hard. So it was clear to me then that, hey, we need guidelines. Like we switch one developer from a project and say, hey, this project is wrapped up, so go to another project. And it was pretty hard for onboarding the team. So there we came to say, here we just have to have guidelines. But now it's no longer the case. We just switch a developer from one project pretty very fast because you know what to do. It's all the same.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. That. Now, the creation of the guidelines. So how do you actually, create one? Okay. Here is where we look straight to the case study at Tunga. What happened at Tunga coming up with one? So in phases, phase number 1 is need identification. So it was pretty clear to us that this particular stage, we need guidelines. So because of having multiple projects running concurrently, because of having difficulties in switching developers, having difficulties in how even code review is done, even agreeing on release management, even agreeing on the Git structure, how should our structure be done, even agreeing on those. So we realized that, I think now this time to have these guidelines. So all of us, we came to that phase. And then after having that, we came to creation process, the stage of now creating them. What happened there is we had to identify a champion or a leader who is going to spearhead this. And it is like, for example, in Tunga, they had to select me to spearhead that. Now we started with having draft guidelines, and these draft guidelines had things, structure elements that are tackling directly the need where we identified the problems that we had. And then we had a phase of iteration, like feedback for everybody in the community or in the team had to contribute to these guidelines because everybody must be involved. And then after that was done, then we went to a phase of adoption. How do we actually adopt this? Okay. First of all, we had to put a mark and say, in a new project, these are the guidelines we must follow. Then existing projects, this is the phase, this is the plan, how we're going to move to these new guidelines. So that process, adoption process, has to be extremely clear to everyone so that it can go ahead. Okay. So I actually, by the way, during that time, it was a little bit crazy when we realized that, okay, who is going to do this? We had a feedback loop that was endless. So everybody wanted to have input, and it was taking us a lot of time. So we have to watch ourselves like, okay, when do we have a good enough version one of the project, of the guideline, sorry, and then when do you have version 2? So at the moment at Tunga, we have
But I
version 1.
also think, I also think that what you're saying about need identification, that's very important, because in our specific case, the software development guidelines, they have to be applicable to a myriad of different projects. Whereas if you have, for example, one product that you're writing guidelines for, you can be much more specific, right? Because you're writing it in a certain language or using a certain release procedure. So I think that's also important if you're going to create this for yourself, to know how detailed do you need to be, and maybe not, right? So for us, it's also, I think, much a library of things that we use, and that creates, I think, even more discussion. So it was a good discussion, though, right?
Yeah, it was a good discussion. Absolutely. Okay, yeah, so what are these guidelines? That is the most important question. So in how we came to conclusion at Tunga, so this guidelines is just a document that has rules and regulations and procedures that guide how we collaborate on the code, how we deploy, how we manage it, and how we take it to production. So it has all those, it's an incredible document that has all those things together throughout the development cycle of the software. So that document is what the guidelines, just like any other guidelines that that you actually specify that will govern a certain process, and it's the same way, exactly the same way. Right, for some of the key elements that you will need to put there, of course, like we have already told you, like we've already discussed it already with Rania, is it's not like one fit all solution. So you have to identify what are the elements, what are the things you need to address in these guidelines. Number one is, for us, we think that there must be Git structure, because this is very important to know how you structure your code base, how you structure a repository if you are collaborating to facilitate things like rollbacks, things like hot fixes, things like features. So it depends on how you build it. So we highly recommend that you must have Git structure there. And then DevOps, things that are relating to how we actually deploy these applications, how do the things we build, how many servers you need to have, who deploys on which server, the release management, which tools to use during deployment, what are the security measures we need to know, the time and release. So all those guidelines that help us to be on the same page when it comes to the delivery of the product is very key for you to have it there.
Hey, Rodney, can you give us an example of DevOps or the Git structure where you say, hey, I've noticed in the past I had a project where we didn't have this, so we didn't have this defined from the outset. What were some of the consequences that you experienced?
The clear example is when we were building actually two projects that happened, is we were unable even to do a rollback. So we had this plan to say, okay, this is the go live plan. So we built the application and it was on staging server, where the client said, okay, now we go to production. Now, when we went to production, things became different. So we wanted to do rollback. It was absolutely hectic for us to do rollback. Another clear one was about having a buggy code, like helping us in debugging issues on application. So if we don't have a clear Git structure, or if you don't have a proper guidelines on how we deploy, then it becomes it was clear to us that we need to have them. Yeah. Okay, does that answer your question, René?
No, absolutely.
That's
Yeah.
pretty clear.
So I think it's it's really straightforward when you talk about it, but when you don't have it, it's also something that you can sometimes overlook. So I think it's important to know the consequences.
Yeah, for example, this scenario whereby everybody was deploying to production, and there
Yeah.
was no there was no clear guideline to say, hey, who is
Yeah.
supposed to
How
do
do you do
production?
that? Yeah.
And then again, if amongst you there is no person who is going to be a DevOps engineer, and all of you like, okay, I'm not going to DevOps, the other one's going to DevOps, so it becomes chaotic on that. Right. So again, every project should have documentation. For example, README, wiki pages, also architecture documents, API documentation. So some of these I've just highlighted a few, but how do you contribute to this document? So there must be a pretty guideline on how do you change, how do you amend, and the versioning of this documentation. All of them has to be clear so that there shouldn't be chaos on it. Okay. Of course, big one is coding style. Like, for example, there are two things here that can happen. One is you go with industrial agreeable coding style. For example, Java has its coding style. JavaScript has one for you. But you can also have your own custom coding style. How do you write classes? How do you write how do you handle things like security? How do you review the code once the code and MR is raised? Who is supposed to review, and how do you give the feedback that is actionable and helpful to the person who's written the code? This is extremely important. How do you the coding style that can produce a code base that is manageable, code base that is not understandable by everyone? Like, of course, we all know in software, you write the code for someone else. You don't write the code for yourself. So this is extremely important for you to have these guidelines on how the code base should look like. Okay. Again, I can give you an example of all our projects that we've done. Sometimes a code base is given to us. For example, clients, some of the clients bring projects to us that are being moved from some group of people to us. So the very first thing is to do the code review. But when you go to the code review, you find the code is a mess that is so difficult for us even to code review it. Now once we have these guidelines at Tunga, how we follow code style, it becomes pretty easy for us now to do code review. But previously it was just a mess. Every developer will come, he will do code review on his own, and then he will give a report that is of that they're not like matching. So this was a pretty problem to us. But once we got the coding style guideline there, it was okay for us. Okay, I will go to security. It's a very big component of software development these days, that security, how do we handle security and what level of security should we go to? For example, when you write code, what are the security elements you must put in place? And then what's the detailed level you must be, because as you know, security is a very wide topic. How do we deploy the security measures we have to do? So everything regarding security, there must be guidelines that guide the entire team when they're writing code, when they're on a project. And of course, every project has things that help to manage the process, like teams, how many teams and their roles. What are you going to do there? If, for example, if there's no DevOps engineer, who's going to be the DevOps engineer? Then project management tools that you're going to use. Are you going to use Jira? Are you going to use Asana? Whatever you have to agree, how do you come to that? Even the development methodology, by the way, it may look like trivial, but it's very, very important. Are you going to use Agile? Meaning that you build and then you deploy, continuous deployment and continuous delivery of the project. Are you going to use Scrum? Are you going to, so you have to be sure that the entire team is aware on which methodology they are using. And of course, also the big one, I put it last even there, is definition of ready and definition of done. So when do we say start writing this feature, and when do we say the feature is done? So all those things have to be, the guidelines have to be there. Right. So at this time, but by the way, this document.
But Ronnie, just maybe an evil question here. So this doesn't feel like code, right? So why is it in the software development guidelines?
Yes, because code is not about, when you're building a software project, it's not about writing code, writing lines of code. It goes beyond that. It goes beyond communication. Is crucial as a software developer. How do you communicate? Then even the process, which process are we going to use? So all those things are part of software development lifecycle. Like, for example, if you're not agreeing on which tool you're going to use. Is it Jira? And then how are you going to track these issues? How does the issue move from being in progress until it's on the server? When does it go to QA? When does it come back from QA? All those things are supposed to be clear, and even the methodology you're going to use. So this is a huge component of software development. It's just not about like writing a code of line. Yeah.
Yeah. I see. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So in that regard, we have a couple of questions that are open. By the way, should we react on them, or you're going to poll question?
Sorry, you have what? No, we
Yeah, we
shall
have a
react to the
bunch of
question later.
questions. I think
Do you want?
during the Q&A. Yeah. But I think
Yeah, we have
they're
the
nice
Q&A
questions
section.
already.
Yeah, they're very
Yeah.
good
Do it in
questions.
QA.
Yeah.
All right.
So I think
Let's go on for a second poll. Let me launch it.
no, I have questions. Should I answer these questions? I have great. I
mm,
see a lot of good
we,
questions there.
we have Q&A session later on. Don't worry.
You
I'm also dying
celebrate,
to answer them.
Ronnie.
Yeah. It's about them. I'm really curious to know what happens there, what is happening.
Okay, Ronnie, go to the next slide, please, where we have the poll question, please. Back. Okay, I'm launching our next poll. Which topic do you find most important to set guidelines for? First option, the JIT structure. DevOps, documentation, coding and style review, security, or project management? Again, which topic do you find most important to set guidelines for? JIT structure, DevOps, documentation, coding style and review, security, and finally project management. Let's see what is coming in. Okay, the answers are interesting. I know Renier wouldn't guess this one.
Yeah.
What would take the highest? I have the liberty
For
of seeing
me,
what is taking the highest here. Yes.
if I had to guess, yeah, I don't know. I think coding style, or maybe the DevOps. How do you
No,
deploy?
stick to one. Stick to one. Stick to one.
Okay,
And you're almost
let's say
getting it.
DevOps.
You're almost getting it.
Oh
You're going to
yeah,
DevOps.
yeah.
All right, let me see. 6 and 2, 2, 2, 2. Okay, I think we are going to close the poll. I'm closing the poll in the next 5 seconds. So please, guys, you can don't put your suggestion in the comments. Please put it in the poll. Yes, because I'm seeing some people typing in the comment section. So I'm wondering why. All right, I'm closing the poll now, and here we go.
Okay.
I told you, you're almost getting it.
Coding style. But it was pretty obvious, really.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious and interesting. The other people have different views, so you never know.
Yeah,
For them, they might
I
feel.
find it's most interesting to see that it's so, across the board. Yeah, we have a clear winner, but all the other parts get some votes as well. So yeah.
Nice, excellent. I'm very happy.
All right, you can continue, Ronnie.
All right, so now where we reach at the interesting part, how do we apply them at Tunga? Okay, that is very big. It's a pretty big idea at the moment. So how we do it is we create awareness. That's the first phase we do. So things like you have to do a test. We do tests for people who are going to join any Tunga assignment. We also talk about them in our onboarding process. We make sure that everybody is aware. But the most important thing in this phase is explaining why. Why do we need them in this process? So everybody should be able to articulate why we need these guidelines. So agreements. So you have to have agreement, people agreeing. It's not like you have to write an agreement and sign on it, but you need people must acknowledge and agree that yes, these are the guidelines that we're going to apply in the software development project of this particular one. But when you have commitment of people, then people are aware that I'm committed to do this. So that one is pretty obvious to us. How we do that at Tunga is, people of course submit these results, and then during onboarding process, they agree to them and say, yes, this is something that we can do, and they can also articulate it. And then, yeah, we go ahead and apply these guidelines during the progress of the project. And here I mean is we don't divert, like we stay on it unless something is extremely out a user case that is edge user case, then that's when we have to look at it and say, hey, the guidance was saying this is how we structure our Git, but according to the situation, this is not the case. So we go through it from the beginning of the project until the end of the project. Okay. I'm going to show you a little bit about, are you able to see my screen? Roger, are you able to see my screen?
Yeah.
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 So I'll go a little bit to show you a snip, like show you how it looks like at Tunga. And this is, we have table of contents, of course. We have, as you can see, the elements that we have on our structure. We have team structure, project documentation, Git, general coding guidelines, style, code review, deployments, how we do general DevOps, quality assurance, and security. So all those are the elements, and each one of these are addressing a particular problem that we identified in the past so that it shouldn't be able to happen. So these are the guidelines that we have and then that we use. Hopefully, Roger, you will share a link. We shall share a link so that they can be able to access this guidelines. Okay. So let's proceed. Loading screen is cool.
Just a note also on these. So they have been shared on the Tunga Slack. So if you are a developer already on Tunga, you can get them on the Slack. If you are working on a Tunga project or an assignment, you can get them through your project manager or talent manager. And if not, you can always contact us through join@tunga.io, or you can contact us through Slack. Just find someone with a Tunga handle, and you can ask for the software development guidelines, and we can share them with you.
Absolutely amazing. That's absolutely good.
Cool. All right, let's go in for our third poll, and I'm going to launch it in the next few. Next page, please.
Okay.
Cool. All right. So we're asking, what would it take for you to follow the software development guidelines? One, I need to be reminded from time to time. Yeah, some people need to be reminded, true. Two, the second option is nothing. I find it important, so I'll make sure to adhere to them. That is good. Third one, I need consequences. Otherwise, I'll take a shortcut. And the fourth one, if there's somewhere I can find them easily, that's enough. Oh, I like the options. They are testing some little bit of ethics from the developers. I like such questions. Okay, guys, let's start voting and see what the options will be. So you can't ask me what the best option will be because I'm seeing the answers here. But Ronnie, what would you think would be the winning response?
So as software developers, we like taking the easy route. If they are somewhere, that's fine with me. That's okay. We are a lazy bunch of people. That's why we come with all the sort of things to make sure that we find the easiest way to do something.
True. Well, all I can say is neck to neck for now. And I think I understand why it's neck to neck. Yeah. I'm giving them like 5 more seconds to things have changed. Okay, 5 more seconds to finish up with the voting, and I think, but the many guys who haven't voted. Guys, please vote. Please vote. You're several attendees, so yes. All right, 2 more people to vote. All right, cool. I'm ending the poll, and as I said, it is neck to neck almost.
Wow. Okay.
And there we go. So,
equal score, yeah.
Equal score, and some people never voted, but I think it's logical. It's good to find them to know that it's important to follow these guidelines, and we are happy to see that there are some developers out there willing to follow them.
Yeah.
And also how they can easily access them is another thing altogether.
Yeah,
At some point,
so,
Renee,
so that's, I think for us, that's
mhm,
for Tunga, it's a good takeaway. That that's the most important thing to make sure that they're easily accessible.
true, true,
Yeah.
true.
Point taken.
For example, we communicate on Slack. So our default choice platform to do is that. So every
Yeah.
project, we create a channel, documents channel, resource channel sometimes, and it is always there. And everybody is tagged there. And we majorly say, hey, please tick this or give thumbs up when you have seen this document. So anytime you need it, you just go to the Slack channel and get it during the project.
All
Yeah.
right, cool. I think the attendees have also seen the poll results. Let me stop sharing now and we can continue to the next topic, please. I think it's a fine
Nice.
Cool.
topic. Yeah.
Thank you. So we are now going to the interesting part is how can I create one for yourself? So how can you actually go ahead and create this? Of course, if you follow the Tunga way, how we've done it, you have the way already. You already know how to do that. So we've come up with some steps. The first step is always get the buy-in because people are going to use these guidelines. They need to be aware. You need to explain to them why you need them, and all of them should agree. The second step is get the leader, get the champion, get someone who is going to lead this. Most times, a project lead would be a perfect candidate for this. The next one is come with drafts. Don't hide in your room, create the guidelines and show up and say, hey, these are the guidelines. No. Have a
Mhm.
draft and have iteration round where people will give feedback and they will correct some things so that all people's thoughts are there and it's clear to everybody. By the way, this process also helps people to understand these guidelines. So if you're part of the process, it's pretty easy for you to know how these guidelines are supposed to be applied and each part of it. Then you approve the guidelines. You say, this is the version one of the guidelines. This is a living document. It's not like you do it once, that's it. There's always going to be retros to go back and say, hey, what do we need to improve? What do we need to remove? So that it's always up to date as the project is going on. Of course, keep them in a place that is accessible by all. That is very, very important. If you need the guidelines to refer to it, you should be able to access it anytime you need it.
Sure.
Like I've given already the example here is that we always have a Slack channel and the document is there. And when do you apply these guidelines? When you are working on Tunga project, these ones by default have to be applied, okay? An existing team, if you want to scale your project, for example, you are two of you, or even you're a single person working on the project, and now you want to have many people contribute to the project, that is the right time for you to come up with the guidelines so that you have a good process. Then if you're starting a new project, for example, there are going to be multiple developers on it. That is also a very good time, by the way, to have these guidelines in place so that the project can start on the right foot. And then when you have open source projects that you're going to have put on GitHub or GitLab, it's absolutely necessary for you to have guidelines so that people can know what to do. The people who are contributing to your code base know what to do at what particular time. Okay. Yeah.
All right,
So
cool. I'll take
exactly.
on the final poll session, and at some point, Renee, I'll leave with the Q&A for you. Is that correct? Is that okay?
That's okay with me. That's okay with
Cool.
me.
All right, let
Yeah,
me launch the
it's the most
final.
interesting part. I'm looking forward to.
All right, the
So
final poll question is, will you create software development guidelines for your own projects now? Okay, the first option is no, I don't think it's necessary. Second option is absolutely. The third option is yes, but looks like a lot of work. I'll copy them from Tunga. I think I'll take the third option. Why
All
do I
right.
create them
Yeah,
if
I'm
they're already there?
curious. I'm curious.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
I mean,
let's say that if someone says no, then I would be interesting to know why they don't think it's necessary. Yeah.
and
well,
and, and me, this is the interesting poll when I saw it when we were preparing this presentation. I really
mhm.
looking forward to this.
Well,
Yeah.
I can
as a hint,
imagine.
I can say it's neck to neck so far.
Okay. Okay.
But things could
That's
change. Who
nice.
knows?
Yeah.
Absolutely, I
Yeah,
agree.
guys,
I
this is the
agree.
most important poll. So please vote on this final poll and we get some feedback. and we shall be able to share it with you as well, and without other comments as to why. It's very important because it lets us know exactly what you've gathered from this entire webinar.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's like the summary of all summaries, or polls of all polls.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hey, I can't
Q&A.
wait to see the results. Are we
Well,
there yet? Are we there yet?
I'm giving them 5 more seconds now. 5 more seconds.
Okay.
Yep. All
Nice.
right. 3, 2, and 1.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay, okay.
Wow. That only
That's
one
cool. That's
person, by the
cool.
way, has
Yeah.
said it's not necessary. Interesting.
I'm
Maybe you
still
can put in
curious.
the
Why?
yeah.
Yeah. Why?
Maybe you can put it in comment
Put in
section.
the
I don't know
Q&A.
whether
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
to know why that. So
Okay, whoever voted no, kindly come in the comment section and give us your reason as to why. But after that, I think we're going to the Q&A next, isn't it?
yeah, that should be
Yep.
it.
Yeah, I think
Exactly.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a couple of answers that, or sorry, a couple of questions that are quite interesting. So the first one I'd like to start with is this is by Victor, and he's asking, at what point do you carry out trials or tests, if at all, before adoption to make sure everything is success?
uh,
So yeah, maybe Ronnie, you can. So
Let
Experimentation.
how
me
did we do
start.
that?
So
Yeah.
I think first of all, the entire guideline is kind of trial. That's why I have versions. So you come up with the guidelines and say should be good enough to go to help us. Now you go and then you say this is version 1. Then you go along the way with the project, and then you have a retro to revisit and see how are these guidelines helping us. And then you remove things, you add things, then you move on. So it's like I've said, it's a living document where you keep updating and going. This is not like a constitution of the country.
Yeah.
Yeah. You
No,
have
I think
another view?
what the answer is basically it's never done. So also now, if one of you starts working with these guidelines from Tunga and you say, hey, Tunga, what you've written here, it just doesn't make sense, or for my project it doesn't apply at all. That's for I think for us it's a starting point to say, oh, how can we improve it then, right? So I think my answer would be you start running it as soon as possible, and it's always a test, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, talking about tests, Monty Dimka is asking us, hello guys, where do tests come in your Git flow? So this is quite a specialized question.
Yeah, but maybe you are not sure about what tests do you mean. Do you mean unit tests? Do you need what tests are they? Maybe it's not clear.
The option. Yeah.
So if it's let's say if it's unit tests, unit test is part of if it's unit test is part of the code base that you deliver. So essentially there is no difference between actual code that you've written for a feature and also unit test. It's part of it. So it should be following the Git flow that is there. So there's no special Git flow that you'll have to create to accommodate unit tests. Unless I've got the question wrong, but if that's the question, if I understood the question correctly, that's the answer.
Okay. Monty is also asking us right now, do we also use GitHub Actions? I think our preferred platform of choice is GitLab, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, so we prefer to use GitLab. But Monty, if you have any ideas about GitHub Actions, I'm sure we'd love to hear about it.
Where is the question exactly? Where is that question? What was the question exactly?
No, Monty was just asking us whether we also use GitHub Actions.
Yeah, we use, yeah.
All right. So Monty's also asking for your DevOps processes pre-release. Do you have separate QA processes? I take it what Monty is meaning is that how do you test before you go live? So how do you do that with QA?
Okay. So should you go first or let me go first? Ready? Maybe you can go first
Yeah,
on
yeah,
this.
go ahead, Ronnie.
Okay, so how it's done, I'll give you a clear case study at Tunga. So how we do it, we do continuous delivery and continuous deployment, because we usually, the nature of the project we do, that's what requires. Now, what we do is we build a feature. After it is done, we send it to QA. After QA has tested it, if it has passed all the tests, but by the way, before I even go there, QA has to give us test cases of a feature uphand so that we can know what they're going to test on this feature. From QA creates these test cases from user stories, from other sources, any other information that is given. Then we build a feature, we send it to QA team. QA team will test it. If it passes, then we have to send it to product owner to certify whether it is done. Now that when that is done, it is deployed to a server, usually a staging server. Then it's the project owner who says now that feature should be deployed to production. The answer is before the feature goes to staging server, the process of QA has already happened. I hope that answers your question. Hopefully.
I think it does. I think it does. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So now we have one from Dennis Bay, and he's asking us, do you have coding guidelines for each project stack? I think it's an interesting question because we're working with 20, 30 odd different software languages. Do we have coding guidelines for every different stack?
When we say project stack, are we meaning technology stack of the project or technology the size stack, of the project? Is it the size of the project?
I think we're talking about technology stack.
Oh, the technology stack of the project. No, at the moment, no. So what the only difference that we have is when it comes to coding style. So at Tunga, every programming language we have a clear link, the coding style you must follow. For example, if you're building, let's say, a Python project, so there is a link that we're showing you. As long as it is Python, this is the coding style you must follow. The rest of other things are all pretty much the same. DevOps still the same. All other processes still the same. The only difference thing is that we use different coding styles.
Yeah. Yeah.
That answers the question, I hope.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I think it does. So Kwabena Berko is asking us when we will have access to the guidelines document. Well, the answer to that one is if you are already on Tunga, you have access to it through Slack, and your project or your talent manager can share it with you. If not, you can reach us through join@tunga.io, and we can share the guidelines with you. And we'd love to have you on board. So there is that question. And then Oladosu is asking us, are there specific quality analysts, specific testers for each project? So does each project has its own QA engineers?
Okay, that is answered. Have you answered that?
I think the answer is
so
yes,
maybe,
right, Ronnie?
Yes, that's the answer. So every project has a team setup. Among the team setup, we say, okay, this is the person who's going to do the QA. This is the person who's going to do DevOps engineer. The answer is yes. Every project has a specific test to do that.
Yeah, and I think that's also part of the guidelines that we specify which roles are there on the project, because that's also important to know what can you expect from people. And of course, people can have multiple roles, but it should be clear who's doing what on each project. Then I'd like to do the final question now, and then I want to go back to one more comment. So the final question is also from Monty. And he is asking on security. So we're talking about security here. Are there code level security practices, and what are they? And also, if you are using cloud, how do you manage security and control managed deployments and active monitoring? I think this is a very interesting question. So at what levels do we have security?
Absolutely. So at the moment, the guidelines we have, so first of all, we have guidelines that describe how we build code, that has security enabling best practices of security enabling. That's number one. But we do basic security that is acceptable before a software goes to production. But unless the client specifically asks, I need this level of security, now that is a different use case. But what our guidelines cover is, are these acceptable security standards for a product goes to production, all the way, the code base, how it is built, what security measures should put in the code base, and most of the time, if a client has asked for that, we have security testers to do that. Equally also, the guidelines are the same how we deploy code to cloud. So like at the moment is, the guidelines that we have, for example, is you use specific tools that we have given, the deployment tools that are going to use to deploy code, how you deploy it. The tools that we use are specifically on those guidelines. I don't have them offhand, but they're clear there. So these guidelines gives you how deep you can go in implementing security in the code base. It also gives you how it is tested, and it also gives you the things you must do when you're deploying the code to production, and also specifies the things that you have to do on production on the cloud that you have to follow in a project that you're doing. But these are usually done on production environments, and production environments are mostly handled by the client. Usually it's the client who dictates what happens on production environment. So majorly it's a case-by-case scenario that we handle our security guidelines at the moment.
Yeah. So, but we do it based on the Open Web Application Security Project, OWASP. So we have 12 tips in the guidelines. It's quite a lot, so we cannot repeat it all here. But I mean, it's very detailed. So and of course, it's an important concern for us in any project.
Yeah. When you're building the code base, you have to look through that.
Yeah. So the one thing is, has someone answered? Will you be having coding guidelines for your own project as well? Now someone answered, no, I still don't think that's necessary. And the answer there was, yeah, it's a personal project. I'm pretty much following default guidelines, and if others come on board, I'll implement and automate standard coding guidelines. What do you guys think about that?
Make sense? I don't get the question very well.
So we had the poll question, and someone answered, yeah, I don't think I'm going to use coding guidelines just yet. I don't think they're necessary. And then why, he explained, yeah, it's a personal project. I'm pretty much following default guidelines, and if others come on board, I'll implement and automate standard coding guidelines. So what do you guys think about that? Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes sense.
It makes sense. Now we know the context of no. We're wondering what is the context. Yeah, absolutely sure. So if it's a personal project that is, there's no need now. Probably at a later stage, you know when to apply them.
Yeah, but it's really important, I think, for scaling projects, scaling teams.
Scaling team.
All right.
Okay, I think we are done as per now.
And on time. Nice.
And on time, which is good. All right, thank you, Ronnie, for making our dev hour this interesting. Please come back again in case you have any other topic, because this has been very interesting. I'd like to thank you as well, Renier, for making this more engaging as well, as usual.
Happy to be here.
Our silent partner in the background called Lane. We also thank you for whatever work you're doing in the background. Otherwise, I think we can call it an hour. I've been your host, Roger, with Renier, and we can say goodbye for now. All right, bye.
Thank you so much.